Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NFL Week 6 edition of the Bacon Bets podcast. The road to 272 bets continues. We faced a little bit of adversity to start the season, and now we have posted back-to-back winning weeks. The Chiefs and Saints just wrapped up. Was not on the right side for that one. I was on the Saints. If that one would have won, we would have been back in the green for the season. We are not quite there just quite yet, but we have taken a step in the right direction. So 8-6 in week 5, 8-6 for plus 1.54 units. That brings my season to date record heading into week 6 to 39, 38, and 1 for minus 0.64 units. So one more profitable week, and we'll be back in the green. My best bets last week, just to kind of finish off the recap, my best bets last week went 3-2, so an improvement for my best bets as well. Hit Dolphins, hit Jaguars, hit Packers, lost both the Browns and the Jets. And unfortunately, my Survivor pick lost. So I'm out of my Survivor pool. The obvious choice was the Seahawks. That's why I'm not too upset. There is no other team that made a lot of sense. Considering, even the 49ers lost, but I'd already used the 49ers. Seahawks were touchdown favorites. Giants didn't have Malik Neighbors, but Giants still found a way to win that game. So that's Survivor for you. So my Seahawks pick and Survivor lost, so I'll not be giving out any more Survivor picks. I guess I can briefly touch on it at the end of the episode, but I didn't do any. I don't do any of those like kind of redo pools. So I'm sure some of you probably have joined some of those pools, so I guess I can briefly talk Survivor, but my entries are all officially dead now in what has been an unbelievably tough Survivor season. I think the most picked team has lost every single week, I think, except for last week when the 49ers beat the Patriots. I think every single underdogs of a touchdown or more, or like have a winning record. It's been a crazy season. So probably not too much Survivor talk the rest of the way, but I'll give some brief thoughts at the end of the episode. My teaser last week, did it hit? I believe it did, because I teased the Jets up to 8.5, and the Jets lost by 6, so the Jets won 1, and then I have 2 down here. Did I go Panthers last week, or did I go Browns? I don't remember. Panthers would have lost if you did the Panthers, and if you did the Browns, I don't know why I have 2 written down on my notes, and the Browns would have lost as well. So the teaser lost. Okay, perfect. Not only has this been a tough season for favorites, for big favorites, for Survivor, it has generally been a tough season for teaser bets as well. But we move on to week 6. At the end of the day, I was profitable last week. We're back to just around half a unit down on the season. Another profitable week will get us back into the green for the year. So yeah, let's keep it going. We're in the meat of the season now, my friends. Week 6. 4 teams on bye once again, so only 14 games to watch and bet on. So let's dive into it. It is the NFL Week 6 edition of the Bacon Bets podcast. The road to 272 bets marches on. Let's go.
I'm not a state. I'm a monster.
No, Lisa. The only monster here is the gambling monster that has enslaved your mother. I call him Gambler, and it's time to snatch your mother from his neon claws.
All right, here we go. Starting with Thursday Night Football. I do not have my pick in yet for Saints and Buccaneers since that game just ended. I got to wait a little bit longer for that line to post. So I'm going to record the first half of my picks, first 7 here, and then I'll take a break and go handicap that game, and then come back for the second half of the Week 6 games. But we will start, as always, with Thursday Night Football. This one is an NFC West matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. It is in Seattle, and I'm going to take the Seahawks plus 3.5 at minus 115. I truly don't think, at least at this point of the season, I don't think we can evaluate this 49ers team in the same way as we have last year. I don't think they are that same NFC winning team, at least not yet. Now, I will say the 49ers generally under Kyle Shanahan have improved as the season goes on, so I'm not completely out on them. I'm not going to say I'm not going to bet on them in the coming weeks, or even, pick them to win the NFC again this year. If you remember last year, I think it was right around now, maybe a little bit later in the season, They lost 3 games in a row, and they lost against bad teams. So I'm not completely selling my stock in the 49ers, but until I see them turn things around, especially on defense, I don't value them as highly as the market does. For example, on defense, 21st in the NFL in opponent yards per play, 12th in opponent EPA per play. That's below the Seahawks in both of those categories. Now, I do need Seattle to run the ball a little bit more in this game. I think they have the lowest run play percentage in the league so far, but yet for some reason they're averaging 5 yards per carry, 7th best. So they're running the ball actually very effectively. Mike McDonald should realize that and probably start leaning on the run game a little bit more. And if he does that on Thursday night, which I wouldn't be surprised if he does, that's going to set the Seahawks up in a pretty good position here because the 49ers 26th in opponent rush success rate. So we're talking about a 49ers team that defensively is not as good. They've actually even regressed further than where they were last year. An offense that still, has some issues that they kind of need to iron out. Now in a divisional game in Seattle on the road in a short week, laying over a field goal. Certainly not one of my more confident plays, but I did end up settling on the Seahawks getting 3.5 points, which is where I'm going to go with that one. One that I kind of wish I could pass on. To be honest, I don't love anything in that game, but Seattle getting 3.5 at home, and just thinking that the 49ers aren't quite at their best right now. I'm going to take the points with Seattle. We are going to move on to NFL London Sunday morning action. The Jaguars are going to be playing 2 weeks in a row here in London. The first one is against the Bears. Last week I did kind of buy low correctly at the right time on the Jaguars, although that was a bet that probably halfway through the fourth quarter or halfway through the third quarter, I had chalked that up as a win because they were up like 2 touchdowns, I think, and then they immediately allowed 2 touchdowns. And it was a tied game. They ended up kicking the game-winning field goal to cover the 2.5 point spread. I hope that you bet that. Actually, a lot of the games last week, if you tail my picks earlier in the week, you probably fared a little bit better. I'm just looking through them now. Packers covered regardless. Broncos covered regardless. I know the Jaguars were at -3, which would have been a push if you bet it later in the week. So that's 1. Did the Ravens get up to 3? I'm not exactly sure. I got them at 2.5, and they ended up winning by 3. So definitely the Jaguars game. If you bet that a little bit earlier in the week, you would have been on the right side of it. But now I'm going to actually sell a little bit of Jaguar stock because I think this is a horrific matchup stylistically for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Everyone's talking about the Jaguars not being good this season, and kind of the offense of the Jaguars is getting the criticism. The play of Trevor Lawrence has been getting some criticism. But we need to be talking about the Jaguars defense because the Jaguars defense has turned into a bottom 5, if not bottom 3 unit in the NFL. They're allowing the second most yards per play at 6 yards per snap. They also rank 31st in opponent EPA per play. So yeah, second last in both opponent yards per play, opponent EPA per play. And their secondary has been abysmal. Joe Flacco completely carved them apart last week. And now the Jaguars, specifically ranked dead last actually, in opponent drop back EPA. And I said about the Bears at the start of the season, I said their offense is going to get off to a slow start. Their offense is then going to start to click, and then that's when we're going to want to bet on the Bears. Now, the issue was I bet on the Bears 2 weeks ago against the Rams. They still covered, but I thought Caleb Williams was going to have a huge breakout game. He didn't look good. I then got off the Bears. I bet on the Panthers this last week. And then, of course, that breakout game happened. So it was a little early, even though, I guess Bears did cover 2 weeks ago against the Rams. But I was a little early predicting when the Bears were going to have a breakout game. I think last week, even though it was against the Panthers, I think it's a sign the Bears are starting to gel offensively, starting to build a little bit of chemistry. Caleb Williams is getting a little bit more confident behind this offensive line and throwing the football with his decisions. So Caleb Williams now gets to face a Jaguars defense that ranks dead last in the NFL in opponent drop back EPA. And I think he's going to have another big performance this weekend in London. This is, by the way, worth noting. I said Jaguars dead last in opponent EPA. Guess what team is first in opponent EPA per drop back? It is the Chicago Bears. So the Bears secondary has been extremely good this season, one of the best in the NFL. The Jaguars throw the ball a ton. They're 8th in pass play percentage, throwing the ball in 61.46% of plays. And the Bears secondary, I think, is going to cause a lot of issues for the Jaguars offense. So I bet the Jaguars last week because they're going up against a very weak secondary in the Colts. Now they're going up against a top 3, top 5 secondary in the Bears. So I think now it's time to flip. I will take the Bears -1.5, which, by the way, most books had it at -2.5. I think it's FanDuel. Let me double check. As of late Monday night, FanDuel still had a -1.5 at -115. So if you're listening to this early Tuesday morning, that line should still be available, but it was 2.5 everywhere else. So I will take the Bears in London to cover the short spread against the Jaguars. Next up is what I think is the game of the week, and I think everyone would kind of agree with me on this. It is the Washington Commanders against the Baltimore Ravens. I didn't really know what to do in this matchup because I have bet against the Commanders the last 2 weeks. I thought I was selling high on the Commanders. I thought Jaden Daniels being a rookie in this offense was going to come back down to earth. And now I'm kind of convinced they're not going to, but I'm in a spot where I feel like I'm Charlie Brown kicking the football and Lucy's holding it. I feel like the Washington Commanders are holding the football. Go ahead, we're good, kick the ball, we're a good team, bet on us, kick the ball. And then the moment I bet on the Commanders, they're going to lift the ball and I'm going to fall flat on my face. That's what's going to happen with the Washington Commanders. So now I'm nervous to kick the ball. I bet against them the last 2 weeks I lost. They seem like an extremely good team. They seem like a team I should be betting on. But I just know the moment I believe in them, the moment I believe Lucy's going to hold the ball there, I'm going to try to kick it and she's going to lift it and I'm going to fall on my butt. So I'm scared to do it. I guarantee you if I bet on the Commanders to cover this week, the Ravens are going to win by 14. So I'm not going to do that. To try to avoid that happening, I'm not going to do that. I will, full disclosure, I'm betting the over in this game, but this is because my brain and my heart are going 2 different directions. My brain is telling me the Commanders seem like a great bet. Getting 6.5 points. The Commanders offense, let me actually quickly show you this graphic. And I've showed this graphic in the past. This is a great website. By the way, people have asked me lately for the stats I use, websites I use for stats. One is just teamrankings.com. That's all the simple stats. If you want a more advanced EPA and success rate website to use, I'm just bringing this down here. Going to get rid of my pick. RBSDM.com has all the great stuff for EPA, success rate, dropback rate, all that stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're not, you should head to YouTube and subscribe to the Bacon Bets podcast right there. You are looking at a graph which is an XY axis of passing efficiency and rushing efficiency measured by EPA per play. The Y-axis is rush EPA per play. The X-axis is rush EPA per play. The Y-axis is dropback EPA per play. So basically, if you're in the top right quadrant, you're good at both things. If you're in the bottom right quadrant, you're good at running the ball, not good at throwing the ball, which is interesting. If you're in the bottom left quadrant, you're bad at both. If you're in the top left quadrant, you are bad at... Now I've confused myself. If you're in the top left quadrant, you're good at throwing the ball, bad at running the ball. Did I say that all correctly? I'm confused because the Falcons are in the bottom right. I thought they were a better throwing team than running team so far this season, but I could be wrong. Vikings, Steelers, dropback EPA, Y, X. No, I said that all wrong. The Y-axis, the Y-axis is rush EPA per play. The X-axis is dropback EPA per play. That doesn't matter. Said everything what I said before, strike it, reverse it. Why I'm showing you this graphic, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you already see it, the Washington Commanders are by themselves in the far, far up right corner. In my years of handicapping the NFL, I don't think I've seen an offense rank that far up in the top right-hand corner of this graph. They are the best rush team and the best pass team offensively. It's unbelievable. Now, they haven't played any elite defenses, and I'm going to get to that in a second with them playing the Ravens this week. Even the Browns last week, I mean, look at where the Browns ranked defensively. The definition of average. But still, that's unbelievable with a rookie quarterback. I've never seen a team be that far up on the top right corner. So yeah, that makes me think that 6.5 points is way too many to give a Commanders offense that is by far the best offense in the NFL. Now, with that being said, their defense does have some issues. Actually, let me bring up that graphic again. This is defense. This is opponent EPA. Bottom left quadrant, which is the worst of both. Commanders, pretty firmly in the bottom left quadrant. We're going to ignore the fact the Falcons are also in the bottom left quadrant. But their defense, bad. So it's tough. I find teams that are elite on one side of the ball, but terrible on the other side of the ball, tough to handicap. But when we're talking about a 6.5 point spread, I think you generally would have to trust the offense. Now, all this is null because I'm actually not betting on the Commanders. I'm taking the over because this does seem like an obvious over because the Ravens, even though everyone wants to talk about how good the Ravens defense is, and the Ravens run defense is the best in the NFL. Their pass defense leaves a lot to be desired, which means Jaden Daniels could once again have another big game. Ravens allow 7.5 yards per pass attempt. Bottom 10, I believe, in the NFL in opponent drop back success rate. Yeah, well, not quite bottom 10. 19th in opponent drop back success rate. 25th, so that is bottom 10 in opponent drop back EPA. Long story short, that is a long-winded way of me saying these are two of the best offenses in the NFL and two of the worst defenses, two of the worst secondaries. I'll say that because the Ravens are elite at stopping the run, but the Commanders, like I showed, can throw the ball just as good as they can run the ball. So we might just see a shootout between Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. If we do, this total should soar over 52.5. So I'm going to go Commanders-Ravens over 52.5. That was one of the most long-winded answers I've ever had for what side I'm betting on this game. My brain says Commanders are a great bet. My heart says as soon as I bet on the Commanders, they're going to not cover, they're going to regress, they're going to come back down to earth. So I'm just going to avoid that situation and bet the over. Two elite offenses, one terrible defense, and one defense that can't stop the pass. Just give me the over between the Commanders and the Ravens. Moving on, we got the Texans and the Patriots. Now this scares me because every time there's been a touchdown favorite, for the most part, they just lose outright. So maybe this is bad. By the way, side note, I think we're going to have a favorites comeback week. I think we're going to have a week that favorites cover at a high rate. Generally, I've seen this year and year again. Anytime that there's a trend early in the season, by the end of the season, for the most part, it regresses to the mean. Underdogs have been covering at an insane rate, winning outright. There's going to be a week where favorites dominate, and I think it might be this week. And I hope it's the Texans over the Patriots. I got the Texans -7, -105. Now, there are teams the Patriots can play against this season who they can hang with. Those generally need to be teams who rely on the run game and who can't rush the passer. Because the Patriots' biggest strength is stopping the run. Their biggest weakness is their offensive line. Unfortunately, the Texans do not line up with that. The Texans throw the ball, they get the majority of their yards through the air, and they can rush the passer. So this is a nightmare matchup for New England. Patriots ranked 26th in opponent yards per pass attempt, 23rd in opponent dropback EPA. CJ Stroud should have a big game. I know that Nico Collins is out, but this wide receiver, they have the deepest wide receiver room in the NFL. Stephon Diggs will step up. Tank Dell will step up. They got some other guys in there whose names are escaping me, but it'd be nice to have Nico Collins, but don't forget how banged up their wide receiver room was last year for the Texans, and CJ Stroud still lit it up. So I think he's going to be able to light up this New England secondary. And like I said, Patriots offensive line sucks. Jacoby Brissett has been pressured on 31.4% of his dropbacks. And that's going to be bad news because the Texans rank 6th in sack percentage. They sack opposing quarterbacks on 9.2% of their dropbacks. This is a terrible matchup for the Patriots. I will take the Texans -7, -105. My theory last week, if you listen to last week's episode, was to buy low on some teams, sell high on other teams. And a great example of that was the Commanders against the Browns. I was trying to sell high on the Commanders, buy low on the Browns. That was dumb. I'm not buying low. I'm not buying... The Browns stock could be in the pits of hell. I'm not buying it. Give me the Eagles minus 8.5. And I think I said 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think I told you guys, I'm not going to bet on the Browns again until Deshaun Watson is no longer their starting quarterback. And then what did I do? I bet on Deshaun Watson. I'm done. Even if it means I'm going to lose bets, I'm done. Because I looked at the line again this week, Eagles minus 8.5. I was like, ooh, could be a good buy low spot on the Browns. No, I immediately correct myself, not falling for that. Again, the Browns offense is historically bad. The Browns offense is averaging 3.8 yards per play. That is the worst mark in the NFL by half a yard. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, half a yard. But when you add that up, half a yard per play compared to the next worst team, which is the Patriots, that's terrible. That's abysmal. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball. I kind of was hoping Nick Chubb was going to be back in the lineup last week. I don't know if he is going to be this week, but I can't risk that. Now, they do take it on an Eagles team who have been bad defensively this season, but the Eagles, fresh off a bye, reports are saying A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith should be back in their lineup, so they're going to have their 2 biggest weapons. They might only need to score 20 points to cover this 8.5-point spread. Can the Browns score 10 points this week? I don't know. Maybe not. The Eagles score 30 points, they're definitely covering the spread. No doubt in my mind. I may lose. The right bet might actually be to invest in the Browns. I'm not falling for that again. It's painful to watch them. If I lose this bet, fine. Can't do it, won't do it. Eagles minus 8.5, minus 110. Colts and the Titans. I said earlier, I don't really know what to do in terms of betting on sides with teams who are really good on one side of the ball and really bad on the other side of the ball. The Titans are the flip of the Commanders. If you took the Commanders' offense and the Titans' defense, you'd have a team that wouldn't lose a game all season. So I'm just going to bet the under. I'm really surprised a game involving the Tennessee Titans has a total of 43.5. I will say if Joe Flacco, and actually probably would have just bet the Colts if I knew Joe Flacco was going to start, because Joe Flacco this season is better than Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson might get better. He might end up being a better quarterback. But I think last week proved that Joe Flacco right now is a better quarterback than Anthony Richardson. If Joe Flacco starts in this game, I would take the Colts. As of Monday night, that has not yet been announced. Their coach said, Shane Steichen said that when Anthony Richardson is healthy, he will start. So there's no quarterback competition. I just don't know if Richardson's healthy or not. This is the downside of having to place my bets on Monday night. So I'm going to take the under because the Titans defense ranks 3rd in opponent yards per play, 6th in opponent EPA per play, 1st in opponent success rate. Offensively in those stats, they're 30th, and 27th. So the 3 main stats that I look at, they are inside the top 6 in all of them, defensively, including 1st in one of them. Offensively, they're in the bottom 6 in all of them, including 3rd last in 2 of them. That is all defense, no offense. I'm shocked the total is at 43.5. Give me the under 43.5 between the Colts and the Titans. Cardinals and Packers. I've been big Cardinals better this season, but this time around I am going to take the Green Bay Packers -5 at -110. These two teams statistically have been actually very similar offensively. They can both run the ball to an average to above average clip. They are both better when throwing the ball, in my opinion, and the metrics would back that up. But where the differences in these two teams are the Packers are much better defensively. Cardinals, terrible defensively. I've talked about this. I bet the over in a couple of their games already because of that. 26th in opponent EPA per play. Dead last in the NFL opponent success rate. Their secondary is especially weak. 7.7 yards per pass attempt they allow, which is the 4th highest mark. I think Jordan Love's going to be able to torch this Cardinals defense. And I don't know if the Cardinals offense can keep up. With this game being at Lambeau, if this was in Arizona, it'd be a different story. But with the Packers being set as 5-point favorites on their home field in Lambeau, I will take Green Bay to cover that 5-point spread. All right, 7 games down, 7 to go. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to handicap Buccaneers Saints, and I'll be back with the rest of my picks for Week 6 of the NFL season. All right, welcome back. We got a real problem. And it's that Derek Carr has been hurt. I remember seeing that he got hurt and he got sent off to the locker room. I kind of forgot about that. He apparently hurt his oblique, and a reporter asked him how he's feeling. He said, not good. And he's getting an MRI tomorrow. So I don't think I can bet on Saints Bucks right now. Not because I feel like I personally need more information. Books have not posted a line because Derek Carr has been hurt. This is why I wait until after Monday Night Football for me to lock in the games involving the teams playing in Monday Night Football, to be fair. So I am prepared for this. It would be unfair if I bet this game this afternoon. Because then by the time this podcast would be released, it'd be meaningless to you guys because the whole handicap and the whole line, the odds would be completely different. I'm assuming the sports books are probably going to wait to hear a report about the MRI tomorrow before they even post a line, so I can't handicap this game tonight. Now, I'll keep an eye on it. If for some reason odds get posted by the time I'm done recording, I'll make a pick based on the information I have. But based on Derek Carr saying not good about his injury, I'm going to assume that he's not going to start, and I'm going to assume their backup, who is, let me bring this up again. I heard his name on the broadcast there. Jake Haener? Haener? Never heard of him. 4th round pick last year from Fresno State. I mean, I'll tell you what, if the Bucs are a field goal favorite or less, the Saints were 2-point favorites before Monday Night Football. That's worth saying, so we'll see how much that will flip. If the Bucs are a field goal favorite or less, I will take the Bucs. If it's Jake Haener, I highly doubt that it's just going to be a field goal. I believe it is in New Orleans, if I remember correctly. So with it being in New Orleans, yeah, it is. Jake Haener starting, let's say he starts. The Bucs, if Saints were 2-point favorites before, I mean, how many points are you dropping from Derek Carr to Jake Haener? 6? Bucs 4.5-point favorites would be my guess. If it's confirmed Haener is going to start. If it's, this is not me handicapping too deep into it, but let's say the Bucs are. Yeah, I just want to look to see a couple things about New Orleans here. They did not really look good tonight at all against the Saints. If the Bucs are 4.5-point favorites, I think I would set. Okay, I'm just going to set the line and we'll go based off that. With Jake Haener starting, I would personally set the line. I think I would set the line at. I don't know anything about this Jake Haener guy. I mean, the Saints are just going to run. They already run the ball a ton anyways. Tampa Bay's not good at stopping the run. In New Orleans, I'd probably set the line at Bucs -4.5. Maybe 5.5. So my bet's going to be based on that. If Jake Haener starts and the Bucs are larger than even 5-point favorites, if it gets to 5.5, I'll probably bet the Saints. If the Bucs are 3.5-point favorites, I'll bet the Bucs. If they're 4.5, I might have to bet the total. So I'm not going to have a bet tonight unless the odds get posted by the time I'm done recording. So what I'll have to do is defer to the second podcast episode of the week, the Player Prop Countdown. I will start the Player Prop Countdown, which I record Wednesday night, so I will lock in my bet Wednesday night as long as the odds are available, and I will start that episode with my pick for the Saints and the Buccaneers. It's the only thing I can do. I'm going to release this episode, tomorrow morning anyways. I can't wait for this line to get released. So go listen. If you're listening to this later in the week, go listen to the Player Prop Countdown to get my pick for the Bucs and the Saints. Best I can do is go through the other 6 games, which I do have picks for, starting with the Steelers and the Raiders, and I'm going to go Raiders +3 at home in this one. It's just hard for me to trust in this Steelers team because they are so bad offensively. They rank inside the bottom 10 in virtually every single metric, and overall the team ranks 23rd in net yards per play, only 2 spots above the Raiders at -0.5. I think both the public and the betting market, setting the Steelers as 3-point road favorites, I think they are overvaluing this Steelers team. The Steelers get a lot of help in timely. The Cowboys dominated the Steelers on Monday night. Let me just look up yards per play in that game. But then they had the Cowboys had I think 2 turnovers in the red zone and a blocked field goal. But that's always what makes me nervous about betting against the Steelers, because they do those things. Like, I've never seen a team get more timely turnovers in their favor than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cowboys outgained them in yards per play 5.9 to 4.0. So almost 2 full more yards per snap than the Steelers. I'm just not a big believer in the Steelers team, and I never am. Now, they certainly are better coached than the Raiders are. But that's not enough. I mean, I think these teams, even defensively, I mean, you're going to hear all over media about how dominant the Steelers defense is. Not really, to be honest. Steelers defense, let me read some stats. 21st in opponent yards per play. They give up 6.8 yards per snap. 17th in opponent success rate. Even if you want to talk about their pressure rate, and I thought I had pressure rate up. I guess I don't. I must have closed that tab. I'm not going to bring it up again. But they're kind of middle of the pack in pressure rate, too. The Steelers are very good at stopping the run, but the Raiders don't run the ball anyways. And actually, the Raiders, if you look at dropback EPA, so you look at the Raiders secondary, 13th compared to the Steelers at 15th. So there's an argument to be made the Raiders secondary is actually better than the Steelers secondary. I think 3 points, getting a full field goal at home. I think the Raiders is the right side. I'll take Raiders +3 at home to the Steelers. My underdog pick of the week, the team that I had just continued to ride all season. The Denver Broncos, who I've bet on, I think, every single game this season. I might have bet a total in one of their games. They've now cashed for me 3 weeks in a row. They're 3-2. If they keep winning for me, there's no reason for me to stop backing them. And I'm going to take them to actually beat the Chargers outright at +140. I know my buddy Josh Daniels is not going to like that. He is, by the way, one of the last 2 Survivor entries in the Bacon Bets podcast Survivor pool. We are down to 2, which I meant to mention at the top of the show, down to 2 people. Everyone picked either the 49ers or the Seahawks, except for 2 guys. Josh picked the Packers, and the other entry, and I should shout out the other guy, whoever it is. Let me bring it up here. The other entry picked the Commanders, so now we are down to just those 2 guys in the Bacon Bets podcast Survivor pool. And I have it right here. It is Legatron. Whoever Legatron is, shout out to you. It's down to 2 people with $3,600 on the line. Best of luck to you guys. But I am going to pick against Josh's favorite team, which is the Los Angeles Chargers. I will take the Denver Broncos +140 in this one. The Chargers, even though I know they're coming off a bye week, I know they're extremely well coached, but I have a lot of concerns about their offensive line. Joe Alt probably back this week. Don't know about Roshan Slater. He was practicing on the sideline on Monday, which is not a great sign, but could be kind of a good sign. But now they have to take on a Broncos defense. By the way, yeah, they allow the 7th highest pressure rate, 25.1%. No, that's the Broncos. The Broncos get the 7th highest pressure rate at 25.1%. Herbert is being pressured 26% of dropbacks, which is the 3rd highest pressure rate allowed. And the Broncos are also getting a sack on 10.8% of opponent dropbacks, which is 3rd in the NFL. So the Broncos are going to generate a high pass rush against the Chargers. Even if they do have Roshan Slater, it's going to be tough. And I don't think the Chargers offense is all that good. 25th and 26th are the Chargers and Broncos in EPA per play. So kind of similar offenses, to be honest. I know they got Justin Herbert, but they're still in a transition phase. Let's not forget, even though the Chargers won a couple games to start the season, they're in a transition phase. They're rebuilding. They got their coach, they got the quarterback. They still got a lot of pieces they got to fill in. And the Broncos offense has kind of looked half decent in the past couple of weeks. I don't know. I'm sold on the Broncos. I'm going to keep betting on them. They're my upset pick of the week, +140 on the money line against the Chargers. Lions and Cowboys. I will take the Detroit Lions. I know I've had Lions fans in my DMs mad that I've not been betting on them. I'm going to bet on you guys this time, so don't let me down. I will take the Lions -3, -115 against the Cowboys. I think the Lions could run the ball every single play in this game and win. because they run the ball extremely well, and the Cowboys ranked dead last in the NFL in opponent rush EPA, 29th in opponent rush success rate, and now they face a Lions offense that is 3rd in rush EPA and 2nd in rush success rate. The Ravens were able to average 6.1 yards per carry against the Cowboys. I think we're going to see a similar result by the Lions. And the Cowboys' biggest strength defensively is their pass rush. That's exactly what the Lions can slow down anytime the Lions do drop back to pass. The Lions allow a sack on just 5.26% of dropbacks. I think this is a bad matchup for the Cowboys. I will take the Lions -3, -115. We finally get to talk about my Atlanta Falcons, my 3-2 Atlanta Falcons, my NFC South leading Atlanta Falcons. I can't take the Falcons winning or having games that go down to the last drive, the last play every single week this season. I need some stress-free victories, please. And if one's going to happen, it's going to come against the Carolina Panthers. Actually, I believe Sunday night this line opened up at 4.5 in favor of the Falcons. It's up to 6. I will take the Falcons at that number regardless, -6. The Falcons have had some issues. There's no doubt about that. They have not looked perfect in their games. But what I want you people to recognize are the teams the Falcons have played in their first 5 games. 4 of their first 5 games have been against teams who were in the playoffs last year. The Steelers, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Buccaneers. The 5th team were the Saints, who were actually tied with the same record for the Buccaneers last year. So 4 playoff teams, 1 team that was just a smidge outside the playoffs last year. They have yet to play an easy opponent. Now they play the Carolina Panthers. Now is the time for the Atlanta Falcons to really squash a team. The Falcons have had by far the toughest schedule through the first 5 weeks, and despite that, they are still 3-2, and most importantly, they are 2nd in the NFL in my favorite stat, net yards per play. The Atlanta Falcons come in at 2nd, plus 0.9. Now, the Falcons have a lot of issues on 3rd down. Offensively, 3rd down, and I think they did a little bit better in week 5, but they are 26th in the NFL in 3rd down conversion rate offensively, dead last in opponent 3rd down conversion rate. That's a big issue. So we got to figure out 3rd down, but they're still extremely good at moving the ball down the field, preventing the other team from doing so. And now, and I can't stress this enough, we are finally seeing the Falcons get to play one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're the first team, they're the last team to play against an easy team this season. Now, I will tell you what my fandom says. My fandom says that this is now where the Falcons are going to lose. Classic Falcons would be to beat the hard teams, lose to the easy teams. But the numbers don't back that up. The numbers tell me that the Falcons are going to run away with this. Truly. Also, don't forget the Panthers, their offense has kind of turned into a pumpkin. They were a good story when Andy Dalton started there. He looked decent the first couple starts. Now he goes back to sucking. The Panthers, at the end of the day, 29th in net yards per play, 27th in EPA per play, 29th in opponent EPA per play. They're a bottom 5 team no matter who's at quarterback. It's time for the Falcons to really dominate a team and win comfortably. I will take them -6, -110 in Carolina. Sunday Night Football, it is the game I don't care about. I'm actually back home this week for a wedding, so I'm actually not going to catch a ton of the games this weekend. To be honest, I'm not too upset. It's actually probably one of the weaker slates of games outside of the Ravens and Commanders, and I don't care about the Bengals and Giants. But I will bet on the Bengals. I almost said the Giants. Nope, going to bet on the Bengals, -3.5, -105. The Giants' biggest weapon, to be fair, the Giants have been a lot better this season than I thought they were going to be. Giants' biggest weapon is their pass rush. They lead the NFL in sack percentage. They take down the opposing quarterback on 12.29% of their dropbacks. But now they take on a Bengals team who have the lowest quarterback pressure rate allowed at 10.4%. So now they're going up a very good offensive line. They're not going to be able to lean on their biggest advantage, which is their pass rush. And while the Bengals defense has been bad, their offense top 5 in just about every single unit or every single metric. They're 3rd in the NFL in EPA per play. The Bengals are going to struggle when they take on really good offenses like we've already seen this year. They struggled against the Chiefs, struggled against the Commanders, struggled against who they just play? Ravens. 3 very elite offenses, but they're going to be able to beat bad offenses. And the Giants, they're a below average offense, even with Malik Neighbors. So I think the Bengals kind of win and cover in this one. I will take the Bengals -3.5, -105. And then finally, Monday Night Football. It is the Bills and the Jets. I call the preseason now. This is actually going to be a little early for me to be doing a victory lap, to be completely honest. But I did call preseason that with Aaron Rodgers there, the Jets aren't going to improve as much offensively as a lot of people thought. And that is exactly what we have seen. And people call me crazy. People call me a Jets hater. People call me an idiot. And the fact of the matter, the Jets have actually, statistically, now, small sample size, 5 games, not been much better. In fact, with Aaron Rodgers, they are now only averaging 0.4 more yards per play and 0.3 more yards per pass than last year with Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, and Tim Boyle. You would hope to get a little bit more than an improvement of 0.3 yards per throw with Aaron Rodgers compared to those guys, but we haven't because he's washed. So I will take the Bills -2.5. -110. Now, I know the Jets' defense is elite. It is why I bet on the last week against the Vikings. But even I didn't realize how bad the Jets' offense was. But even though the Jets' defense is elite, they can be had on the ground a little bit. They allow 4.2 yards per carry. They're 15th in opponent rush EPA, 25th in opponent rush success rate. I believe the Bills are going to be able to run the ball effectively. And the Bills' defense, which is actually an underrated unit, is going to give Rodgers fits, as everyone does. And then Rodgers, I'm starting to hate Rodgers. He's doing this thing where, like, as the game goes on, he's like, if it's not going his way, starts to act injured. Like, there was this past week against the Vikings, there was like, he was about to go in the blue tent, and he was acting all injured, and the Jets got the ball back on, like, a roughing the kicker or something, and he was like, oh, all of a sudden I'm good. Oh, no, I'm good. Stop. He plays up the injury. If he's winning, perfect. He acts like he doesn't have any injury. If they're losing and things aren't going his way, oh, I'm hurt. Stop. I'm sorry, Jets fans. You are not getting what you expected with Aaron Rodgers, but he's 40 years old, coming off an Achilles. I'll take Bills -2.5 on Monday Night Football. All right, let's recap the picks. Once again, we got to wait for Saints and Buccaneers. Let me actually double check to see if a line has been released. I doubt it. I'm going to assume they're going to wait for the MRI to come back. Nothing at DraftKings. Let me actually just go to BetStamp and see if, because we'll know if it's been posted, because the line's going to be significantly different. No. The best line is still Bucks +2.5, which was not going to be the case after this car injury. Yeah, so no line for Saints Bucks. I will make my pick for that game Wednesday night, and I will break that down to begin the player prop countdown, which will be released Thursday morning. But let's recap my picks here, and then I'll give you my best bets and my teaser of the week. We got Seahawks +3.5 on Thursday night, -115. Bears -1.5, -115 against the Jaguars. Commanders Ravens over 52.5, -105. Texans -7, -105 against the Patriots. Eagles -8.5, -110 against the Browns. Colts Titans under 43.5, -114. Packers -5, -110. Raiders +3, -110 against the Steelers. Broncos on the money line +140 against the Chargers. Lions -3, -115 against the Cowboys. Falcons -6, -110 against the Panthers. Bengals -3.5, -105 against the Giants. And then Bills -2.5, -110 against the Jets. My 5 best bets this week: Texans -7, Colts Titans under 43.5. Commanders Ravens over 52.5. Falcons -6, Bills -2.5. That is Texans, Falcons, Bills all to cover. The over in Commanders Ravens, the under in Colts Titans. My teaser this week, which I love, I'm taking the Texans down from -7 against the Patriots down to -1. That is a 6-point teaser. We are taking it off the key number of 7. We're also crossing the key number of 3. And then we're going to turn the Falcons into a pick'em against the Carolina Panthers. Getting off the secondary key number of 6 and crossing the primary key number of 3. So Texans -1, Falcons pick'em against Panthers for a 6-point teaser. For Survivor, if you're in a redo pool, if you happen to still be alive this week in your pool, if you are, congratulations. I would not take the Ravens against the Commanders. I think you just go Eagles. You go Eagles against the Browns. The Browns stink. And you probably still have the Eagles left. That's my Survivor talk. You could take Texans. I like to take I like to take teams at home for Survivor. I like to try to make sure I do that. So you could take the Texans, but who knows? I wouldn't take the Packers. You could take the Falcons. Take the Falcons or the Eagles. Those are your two picks. Pick one of them, although Falcons are on the road, but I'm confident in them this week. Falcons or Eagles. I'd go Eagles. If I was still alive this week in Survivor, I'd be taking Eagles. I'll tell you that. All right, that is the show. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe to the Bacon Bets podcast on YouTube. Check out the player prop countdown, which gets released Thursday mornings, where I rank my top 10 player props for that week. We're profitable, I believe. We're profitable in the player prop countdown this season. And especially listen this week, because I'll give you my Bucks and Saints pick. One last refresh, a bet stamp, to see if a line has been posted anywhere for Bucks Saints. There's no way. No. All right. I'll talk to you all Thursday. Subscribe to the podcast, all that stuff. Gamble or bless. Best of luck. I'll talk to you in a couple days.